The US economy is breaking down before our very eyes. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Take a look at this chart. Interest rate change by account type. This is from 2015 to 2017. On the left-hand side, you can see the basis points. Fed target is right around 100. Credit card around the same. And then we drop dramatically here to these. Online savings, branch checking, and so on, until we get to this. Branch savings. So the average person who just takes their money, puts it in the bank, they get nothing back. Then you add on top of that all the inflation that we experience on a daily basis, our food, our energy, everything else. And you realize that this is actually, in effect, negative use of your money. So a lot of people who are willing to take the risk, they've been investing in things like equities, and maybe they've been flipping houses and all kinds of things. So they've been trying to take their money out of this scenario and try to earn something from it. I know a lot of people who buy into mutual funds, and unfortunately they will realize what they've done eventually, hopefully. So what is this all about? Well, we've had the central banks around the world. They've been taking the most extreme measures possible, bringing interest rates down into negative territory in real terms, and printing literally trillions and trillions of dollars. Over the past few years, 15 trillion, the major central banks around the world. And there's no recourse for people, no way that the average person who's not aware of all this, that they can prevent it from happening. They put their money in the bank, maybe it goes just in the savings account. Maybe if they're willing to take a little bit of risk, they start to put it in, some bonds, or they put it into some mutual funds. And they diversify. Of course, their version of diversification. And this doesn't resolve anything. All you're doing is fueling the banksters. People will need to learn the hard way, unfortunately. When I say the economy is breaking down, there are different statistics that we can look at that prove that. But we can also look at more anecdotal evidence. When I see the people on the streets, that's, to me, a good indicator. I may not be able to have precise numbers and details on that, but I can count them with my own eyes. If I walk down the same street every day of my life, and 5 years ago there was one person on the street, and then there was two, then three, then four, and then there's a whole camp being set up, to me that's a good indicator. The worst is yet to come for American shopping malls. Macy's, JCPenney, Sears, other major department stores closed their doors. The malls that house these stores are facing a serious crisis. And it goes on. A quarter of American malls will close in 5 years. That's around 300 of 1,100. Now, it's been said that there's way too many malls, way too many stores, way too much retail in the US to begin with. There doesn't need to be this much. Well, that may be true. I'm not one to say, but there are a lot of abandoned malls. I mean, I've shown you here on this channel before. And it is pretty extreme to see what has happened. A lot of people will say, and I've covered this before, but I need to mention it every time, that it is e-commerce which has done this. And again, I will say that e-commerce is approximately 9% of total sales in the US. 9%. So, while yes, I do believe that major corporations like Amazon have started to reduce the need for a lot of the brick and mortar locations, but it's still in its infancy, I believe, from where we will be in, let's say, a 20, 30-year period. Now, this is This is pretty interesting. We're talking about the cables which connect the internet together. And there are different places in the world. They run at the bottom of the sea and then come up on land, and they are barely guarded. They're not really under some sort of high-tech surveillance or anything like this. The infrastructure that underpins the internet, these undersea cables, are clearly vulnerable. They underpin pretty much everything that we do. Undersea cables conduct nearly 97% of all global communications, and every day an estimated $10 trillion in financial transfers and vast amounts of data pass through the seabed routes. Satellites, once crucial but now limited in speed and bandwidth, handle only a tiny percentage of global communications. And the reason I mention this, and then I'll move on, is what if those are tampered with? Oh, well, apparently that's already happened. And what if they are brought down, disrupted? Then we will have a major catastrophe on our hands. This here is something we see often. It happens every so often. And it's sad. Do not eat your veggies if they are grown in your front yard, Miami Shores says. But now this community here has decided that these people, their front yard garden, which is manicured very nicely, it looks very nice, and the reason why they grew it in the front was because they do not get enough sun in the back. So they grew it in the front. No big deal. It looks very nice. I think it looks nice anyway. And so these people were basically considered to be criminals as a result. And they're fighting it. They're trying to fight it through the court system and trying to allow it to stay. But it's just, it's so terrible to see something like this. They literally say you can grow ornamental plants, but you can't grow edible plants. It's supposed to be your property, but the truth is that it's not. It's not. You can't even grow a plant. So if somewhere down the road a seed fell onto your property and a plant grew and then, a fruit started growing out of it, is that your fault? You can't do this. It's plants. This is ridiculous. And robots are being used to deter the people on the streets from setting up camp in San Francisco. So you'll see this image here. It looks a little bit like R2-D2. And they go around and basically they do surveillance and not really enforcement, but they're doing more of like a surveillance and reconnaissance missions. And these are happening, and apparently they claim that it's working. I don't know how well it could be working, but this is just what's going to be coming. More and more robots on the streets. To see deliveries being taken care of by robots. They're already talking about the autonomous drones. They have that in different sections of the US government that I can't mention. And you'll see that this is just going to become more and more pervasive. And it's good in some ways, but actually it's not good. What I would suggest to everyone is to look at, this robot is being rented, okay? It's being rented for $7 an hour. There's no human being that's going to be getting paid $7 an hour to walk around. They're a hell of a lot cheaper. And of course, as the technology gets better and better, they're going to get cheaper and cheaper. That's what happens with all technology. So, look forward to the future of robots and automation. I think it's a double-edged sword. There's some amazing things about it. There's no doubt about that. But there's also some things that I have concerns about. So I'm sharing them here. That's all for this video. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you will find my books, The Money GPS, and my newer release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. You can flip through these books. Links are in the description below. Take care.